My name is Mary, and I am 73 years old. I want you to stop what you're doing right now. Put the phone down flat if you have to, because what I am about to say to you is something I wish, with everything in me, that someone had said to me 30 years ago. Here it is. You do not need a man to have a full life after 60, and chasing one or staying in the wrong one might be the single most expensive mistake you make with the years you have left. I know that sounds harsh. I know some of you just felt your stomach tighten. Stay with me. I know what you have been told, because I was told the exact same things, that a woman alone after 60 is a warning sign, a cautionary tale, that people look at her at family dinners and think what a shame, that her children worry, that her friends feel uncomfortable, that somewhere in some unspoken rule book that nobody ever handed you but everybody seems to know, a woman without a partner is a woman who didn't quite finish the job. I believe that. For a long, long time I believed that. I thought that finding love, or keeping it, or replacing it, was the project, the main event, the thing I was supposed to be working on. And here is the truth I want to give you today, the one that took me 7 decades to fully accept. That was never the project. That was just the story we were sold, by movies, by our mothers, by a world that was much more comfortable with women who were attached to something than women who were free. Today I'm going to give you the real story, and I'm going to tell it plainly, because at 73, I have run completely out of patience for anything else. I want to tell you something personal before we go any further, because I am not standing here as someone who got this right. I am standing here as someone who got it spectacularly wrong for most of her adult life and finally figured out why. When my husband of 31 years left me, he didn't die. He didn't get sick. He just decided he wanted something different, and he walked out the door on a Wednesday afternoon in March while I was at the grocery store. I came home to a note on the kitchen counter, and I want to tell you what I did next because I think a lot of you will recognize it. I did not grieve, not at first. What I did first was panic. I thought, who am I now? I thought, what do people do with a woman like me? I was 61 years old, and I felt like a piece of furniture someone had put out on the curb. I spent almost 4 years trying to fix that feeling by finding someone new to make it go away. I went on dates that made me feel worse about myself than being alone ever did. I stayed in contact with a man I didn't even respect because at least his texts made me feel chosen. And then, one morning, I remember it was raining. I was sitting at my kitchen table with my coffee. I looked up and I thought, Mary, what are you doing? What exactly are you so afraid of? And the answer that came back was so quiet and so honest it nearly knocked me off my chair. I was afraid of being myself, without anyone else in the room to tell me who I was. That was it. That was the whole thing. So today I want to give you 6 things. 6 things that nobody tells women over 60 about being without a man. Things I had to learn the hard way, sometimes painfully, sometimes embarrassingly late. And I will warn you now, number 6 is the hardest to hear. Not because it is cruel, but because it sounds completely reasonable, even responsible, right up until the moment it quietly steals the rest of your life. 1. Loneliness and aloneness are not the same thing, and confusing them will cost you. We use these 2 words like they are interchangeable. They are not. They are not even in the same family. Loneliness is an ache. It is the feeling of wanting connection and not having it. It is real, and it deserves to be taken seriously. But aloneness? Aloneness is something else entirely. Aloneness is a quiet room that belongs to you. It is Tuesday morning with no one else's mood to manage. It is choosing what to watch, what to eat, when to sleep, without running it past anyone. It is sovereignty, and we have been taught, very deliberately I think, to be terrified of it. I knew a woman named Ruth. She was 71 when I met her at a church retreat, 9 years out of a long marriage and still treating her life like a waiting room. Every conversation circled back to the same thing. When I find someone, or once I'm not so alone. She talked about her future the way people talk about a train they're waiting on, like her real life was scheduled to arrive and she just hadn't boarded yet. I remember sitting with her on the last evening of that retreat. The sun was going down, and it was genuinely beautiful outside. And she wasn't looking at it. She was looking at her phone, checking a dating app. She said to me, "I feel like I've been in a waiting room for 9 years, Mary, and I don't even know what I'm waiting for anymore." She is 81 now. She is still waiting. Ask yourself, am I actually living my life right now, or am I parked somewhere, killing time, waiting for someone else to show up before I let it begin? 2. A bad relationship will age you faster than being alone. Ever could I need you to hear this one in your body, not just your head. The chronic stress of managing another person's moods, the hypervigilance of walking on eggshells, the quiet daily erosion of pretending everything is fine when everything is not fine. These things are not just emotional inconveniences, they are physical. They live in your nervous system, your sleep, your immune function, your face. I am not being dramatic. The research says this, and more importantly, the women I have known say this. I knew a woman named Margaret. She was 67 when I met her, and she had been with the same man for 12 years. A man who was not unkind exactly, but who had a way of filling every room with his own weather. If he was in a good mood, the house breathed. If he wasn't, everything tightened. Margaret told me she hadn't had a quiet evening in over a decade. She said she had forgotten what it felt like to just sit, to not be listening for something. She laughed when she said it, but her eyes didn't. She finally left him at 70. It took her 3 years to work up to it, and she was terrified every step of the way. Her doctor, at her next physical, asked what medication she had changed because her blood pressure numbers were so dramatically better. She said, "I didn't change my medication. I changed my living room." Ask yourself, what is the real cost, measured in sleep, in peace, in the tension you carry in your shoulders of the company you are currently keeping? 3. Your children's comfort is not a good enough reason to shrink your life. This one is tender. I know it is, so I am going to say it carefully. Many women I have known, good women, loving mothers, made enormous, life-altering decisions based on not wanting to be seen as a burden, not wanting to be that mother, the needy one, the sad one, the one who calls on Saturday nights because she has no one else, so they found a man, any man, quickly, because a partnered woman is a tidy story, and everyone around her could relax. I knew a woman named Joan. She was 64. Her daughter had just had a baby, her first grandchild, and Joan could not bear the image she had built in her mind, the grandmother alone at the kids' table of everyone else's full life. So she married a man she had known for 7 months. I remember her telling me about the engagement, and something in her voice was off. She sounded like someone checking a box, not someone in love. She was separated by the following Easter. And here is the part that broke my heart. Her daughter told her afterward that she never needed Joan to be partnered. She just needed Joan to be okay. And Joan hadn't been okay in years. She had just been busy covering it up. Ask yourself, am I making this decision for my own life, or am I making it to manage someone else's feelings about my life? 4. What you've been calling being realistic is usually just old fear in a nice coat. Some of us, at some point along the way, quietly stopped believing we deserved the real thing: warmth, respect, someone who listens, someone who remembers. And because we stopped believing we deserved it, we called wanting it naive. We said we had outgrown fairy tales. We said we were being practical. I want to name that clearly today. That is not practicality. That is fear that has gotten so comfortable in your chest that you stopped noticing it was there. I knew a woman named Elena, 70 years old, sharp as anyone I've ever met, funny, genuinely lovely. She was with a man who forgot her birthday, not once, twice, 2 years in a row, who interrupted her when she spoke at dinner parties, who made her feel in 100 small ways that she was lucky to be included in his life rather than the other way around. She called it being realistic. One day I asked her, gently, what she would tell her granddaughter if her granddaughter described the same relationship to her. She went very quiet. She looked out the window for a long time, and then she said, I'd tell her to run. Ask yourself, am I being practical, or have I just spent so long being told I should want less that I forgot what I actually deserve? 5. The world will pity you. That is the world's problem, not yours. People will look at a woman over 60 without a partner and they will feel something: discomfort, sympathy, mild concern. They will assume something went wrong, that she is lonely, that she is quietly falling apart in a house full of cats. Let them think it. Because I want to tell you something I have observed very closely over my 73 years of paying attention to people. The ones doing the most pitying are almost always the ones in the most pain. They just have someone sitting next to them at dinner, and that makes the whole thing look neater from the outside. A quiet, chosen, self-respecting life alone looks like a tragedy to people who have never experienced what it feels like to finally have peace in their own home. It threatens them, actually, because if you can be okay without a partner, then what does that say about why they are staying in theirs? Your peace is not a consolation prize. It is not the thing you get when the real prize runs out. It is the prize. It always was. Ask yourself, whose story am I living right now? Mine, or the one other people need me to live so they feel better about the choices they've made? 6. You are not running out of time. You are running out of tolerance, and that is a gift. This is the one. This is the one I need you to sit with. For years, decades, honestly, I carried this low, persistent panic underneath everything I did. This sense that the clock was running and I needed to find something before it was too late, before I was too old, before I became invisible, before nobody wanted me anymore. I treated that feeling like it was wisdom, like it was my instincts telling me something true. It was not wisdom. It was a lie, a very old lie, planted so early and watered so consistently that it grew roots I mistook for my own bones. And here is what I know now at 73 that I could not see at 40 or 50 or even 60, that panic was never about being alone. It was about being confronted with myself, with what I actually wanted, with who I actually was when no one else's needs were organizing my days. That is terrifying. I will not pretend it isn't. Looking at yourself clearly without a relationship to hide behind is some of the bravest work a woman can do. No one ever said this to me, not once. Not my mother, not my friends, not any of the women I looked up to. So let me say it to you now, plainly and clearly. You are not running out of chances. You are running out of patience for anything that costs you your dignity. That is not a tragedy. That is not a symptom of something gone wrong in your life. That is the most alive, the most clear-eyed, the most fully yourself you have ever been. And the question is not whether you are too old to find love. The question, the real question, is whether you are finally ready to stop accepting things that were never really love to begin with. Ask yourself, what if the panic I feel isn't about being alone, but about finally having to face who I really am, what I really want, and what I have been quietly tolerating for far too long? I want to leave you with something before we finish. You are allowed to eat dinner in a quiet house and feel like that is enough. You are allowed to wake up on a Sunday morning with no one else's mood to read, no one's needs to get ahead of, no emotional weather to forecast before you've even had your coffee, and feel like that is a blessing, not a failure. You are allowed to say no to relationships that cost you your sleep, your self-respect, your ability to hear yourself think. You are not broken. You are not a cautionary tale about what happens when a woman ends up alone. You are not a woman who failed to hold things together. You are a woman who finally, after all this time, stopped holding things that were never worth holding. And I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and imagine what the next 10 years of your life look like if you actually believe that. If you stop spending your energy in waiting rooms, if you stop apologizing for taking up space, if you stop measuring your worth by whether someone has chosen to stand beside you, imagine waking up on a Tuesday, an ordinary Tuesday, and your first thought is simply, mine. This day is mine. This life is mine. I built this. That is not the consolation prize. That is the whole point. That was always the whole point. Let me bring it back for you quickly, because I want these to stay with you. Loneliness and aloneness are not the same. Stop confusing them. A bad relationship will age you faster than solitude ever could. Your children's comfort is not a reason to shrink your life. What you call being realistic is usually just fear with good posture. Let the world pity you. It's the world's problem, not yours. And finally, you are not running out of time. You are running out of tolerance. And that is not a loss. That is freedom. Write that last one down somewhere. You will see it tomorrow morning. Before you go, I want you to do just one thing. Sit quietly, just for 60 seconds, phone face down, and ask yourself this. If I stopped waiting for someone to choose me, and I made the decision right now to fully, genuinely choose myself, what would be the very first thing I would change? Not someday, not when the time is right. What would be the very first thing? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one, every single one. Before you go, please share this video. Not for me. I am not asking you to do me a favor. Share it for the woman in your life who needs to hear this today. Your mother, your sister, your friend who calls you late at night, and you can hear in her voice that she is starting to believe the lie. The one who is sitting alone right now, telling herself she is too old, too difficult, too far past her best years for any of this to apply to her. She is none of those things. She is just a woman who was handed a very old, very convincing story, and she has been carrying it for so long she thinks it belongs to her. It doesn't. Send her this. Let her hear it. Because sometimes all a person needs is one voice, just one, to say the thing out loud that they've been too afraid to let themselves believe. Be that voice for her today.